In last week's episode of What Happens in Your Therapy Room Shouldn't Stay There, we talked about the patients who need vision therapy but never start care. In this second conversation, we go one layer deeper because if we're going to help more patients, we first have to understand what patients are actually coming to us for. Most doctors think the value of their practice is the exercises, the activities, the tools. But what if the most valuable part of your practice isn't what you do, it's how you think? In this webinar, we explore why your clinical reasoning, your sequencing, and your methodology may be the most valuable asset you've built, and why understanding that changes everything. I hope you enjoy the replay, and if this conversation resonates with you, like this video, share it with another vision therapy doctor, and subscribe to the channel. Because every year, access to vision therapy shrinks while the need for it grows. If we're going to protect what makes this field so powerful, we have to be willing to build what's next. So let's get building.
Before we get into tonight's topic, I do want to ask you to do something with me. And I want you to think back to 2016. 2016, 10 years ago. Did you think a pandemic was coming? That you'd be running virtual sessions, that entire VT practices would close, and the land that they sat on would be worth more than the practice itself? Did you think that new optometry grads would stop wanting to do VT, stop choosing VT for their practices, and that you might be the last generation of doctors in your office? We'll be honest, 10 years ago, we weren't thinking that way.
At all.
But at
At
all.
all.
And in fact, we were new moms 10 years ago. We were thinking about the practice, being in our practice for forever. But now I want you to do something a little different, something that is actually a little harder. I want you to think forward 10 years. AI is moving faster than the internet did. Technology is reshaping medicine in ways that we have no idea what things are going to look like because it's happening in real time right now. So, whatever you think the next 10 years is going to look like, and be honest with yourself, is it more likely to look more like the last 10 or less? Will in office still be the driving force in vision therapy? And will behavioral optometrists still own this work? Or will the accessibility, if wherever it comes from, claim it instead? Because those are the questions that I want you to be sitting with for the next 45 minutes or so while we're together. Because if we get them right, what happens in your therapy room reaches every patient who needs you. And if we get them wrong, the field will be built by someone who got to accessibility before we did. So tonight we're going to show you why your methodology is more valuable than your schedule. I'm going to tell you a story about American Express that I promise will reframe the whole dilution question for you. And I'm going to show you Dr. Eric Chow, a doctor who recouped his entire Vision Adventure investment before his program was even finished. So let's get into it. So again, kind of with that forward thinking, where do you see yourself in 5 years or in 10 years? Will you still be in practice? And will your practice still be here? Because those can be two very different questions. Will it be a great job or will it be an asset? Because this is where the distinction happens. An asset is something that you can sell. An asset is something that you get to profit off of into the future. And if your practice retires when you do, that's a job. It's a good one. It's a great one, but it's a job.
And I think that's what a lot of doctors are facing right now is that we built these practices thinking that we were building assets. And when we first started 4D Vision Gym, I wanted to make sure that it was not what I called a personality practice because I saw like that's what was being built, that you could go to Dr. Sanet's office, or you could go to Dr. Torgetson's office, or you could go to Dr. Schulman's office, but like the other people who were there didn't really exist. So I didn't want it to be a personality practice. I wanted it to stand alone and stand without me. So it's kind of how we built our practice. And I think that it did serve us. But I feel like it's even more important now because a lot of practices, at least in Connecticut, definitely are just closing. And so practices are closing all around us. When I speak to new grads, they have no interest in going into vision therapy because they've been told that they can't make a living in vision therapy. When I speak to practicing optometrists, they say that vision therapy is kind of their passion project and the rest of their practice is funding their vision therapy. And the practices that are built that are VT only practices, most of them are practices that existed 30, 40 years ago when life was very different. And they built up such a huge personality practice that they're still able to be successful. And they also have been in practice for a very long time and have fewer bills than these new grads who are graduating with 300, like 200, $300,000 in debt. And those doctors are going into things that are more financially rewarding immediately. And so when we're looking to see the practices that we're building, are they just like Jess said, a great job, something that's super, super rewarding, super, super fulfilling. And then when you're done, you just close your doors and help find your patient someplace else to go? Or is it an asset that'll live on not only beyond you, but before even just you decide to like stop practicing and travel the world or be with your grandchildren or whatever it is that you see yourself doing in the next 5 or 10 years? How married to your practice do you need to be? And can your practice stand alone?
So, what we're going to talk about is exactly that, why your methodology is more valuable than your schedule, and why scaling it doesn't mean diluting it. It's the story behind the fear is what is actually happening here because a lot of doctors are very afraid of that. We're going to talk through that and what the doctors who have already done this are walking away with. So, of course, the myth that we're really looking at tonight is that the only way to bottle my genius is by building something new. The thought that in order for you to be able to make your methodology more important than your schedule is that you have to like reinvent the wheel, that you have to do a whole lot of work to make this happen. Let's talk about that. Because the reality is that you use your methodology every day, every single day in a million different little tiny ways. That is what makes you you. That is what makes your practice your practice. But the thing is that if you can develop a system that can distribute your genius, your magic effectively without compromising your care, then you're golden. So, in a lot of ways, you are doing this already. You have a methodology. You explain suppression the same way every time. When you have a patient in front of you and they, are suppressing, you can explain exactly what that means. And chances are you have almost like an internalized script that you say the same thing in the same words over and over again. A lot of times when I am in an exam with Dr. Collier, I know exactly what's happening next because her words are the same every time she comes out.
Every
That
time.
like that it's like
It's like it just
I
plays
know.
on repeat. I don't know. I don't even feel like I'm saying the words anymore.
Yeah, it's like a repeated tape, and it doesn't mean that she doesn't care. It's just that she has perfected her way of like explaining something or of doing something that is repeatable every time because she's just a master at it. She's got it down to a science. It is her methodology. You also know that when you have a patient in therapy, you know when they're going to hit a wall. You know when things are going to get tough. You know when, a patient might stop because they've seen enough progress and, they feel really good and they think, okay, it worked. I'm good. I'm done. And they stop. Or we have to talk them through. Yes, you feel great. Yes, you've made a lot of progress, but this is where we need to make it stick, right? You have those times in a therapeutic process and you know when they're going to happen. You also then, with that, adjust your approach in your patterns, in your programming patterns, in how you approach a different situation. How do you talk to someone who's at that, I feel really good, I'm ready to stop point? And you repeat that methodology every single day. So the thing is that you already have a methodology. You just never had a structure to extract it and then make it go beyond you. That's the only gap between where you are and where this is going, where we are going.
And so, what I want to kind of bring to the forefront, because I think that a lot of us think this way, is we're all doing vision therapy and we all trained under the same doctors. We all went to the same schools. We all go to the same continuing education. So, is my methodology really that different than anyone else's methodology? And while it could seem like they're very similar and why it can seem like we're treating the same exact things, you should stop and think about why is it that people will drive past like 5 other optometry VTO offices to get to you? There's a reason. So it might be your bedside manner, it might be how you explain things, it might be what they've heard about you, but they're coming to you for a reason. And even if you're the only person in your state, they could just choose not to do vision therapy, or they could choose to go to OT, or they could choose to create their own vision therapy program on YouTube. They're coming to you because you're you. And you being you is what is your methodology. How to distill it? Yes, that's a process because us really trying to boil down everything that's in our head into something on paper that accounts for all of the hiccups that Jess was referring to. Yes, that's a thing, and we can walk you through that. But just the first thing I want to really point out, the real reality is that you do have a specific methodology even from your, if you have a business partner, their methodology is going to be different than yours because how you're seeing this patient is going to be a little bit different. How you're going to explain things are going to be a little bit different. And so the methodology is unique to you. That is your particular intellectual property.
And so, again, when we talk about methodology, we're not talking about the exercises, the worksheets, the materials that you use. What it
Yeah,
is
those are not your intellectual property, most likely, unless you are Dr. Brock. Like you didn't invent the Brock string. So that's not yours. We use those things, but that is not your methodology. Yeah.
those are tools. Those are,
Yes,
yeah,
those are
not
tools.
not methodology. What is that you are the way you sequence things, the way you make your clinical decisions, it's the way that you interpret symptoms. It's all of this clinical thinking. And the hard part isn't that you don't have a methodology, because you do. We already talked about that. But the hard part is that it lives entirely inside your clinical intuition. You can't just record videos and exercises and expect them to just replicate what you do, what you know, how you practice. You have to extract the actual clinical decision making, and that requires a very specific process. This is what matters. It's the methodology at the core. And everything we build at 4D Elevate is built to extend that and not to replace it.
Exactly. If it is just a series of exercises, then yes, that is kind of diluting the care. And we'll get more into that too. We don't want just, programs that are just essentially 5 to 10 exercises that people are going to be doing a month or a week or however frequently, and like we hope that they get better. That's not a clinically guided methodology.
So in real life, what your methodology kind of comes down to is how you explain your recurring patient explanations, what you say every time about compliance, about what to expect. And yeah, that suppression example that I gave before. You also have your progression. What happens week 1 versus week 4, and how different is it between different patients when you really boil it down? what happens when your patient stalls and how you troubleshoot, what your logic is when you're making those clinical decisions, and therapist consistency, as well as, those common pivots. How do you make them? How parent education happens? How repeatable is what you do in the therapy room? And when that therapist consistency comes from a documented system, then everything kind of gets a little bit more focused on that clinical thinking and not content creation. That's the biggest difference here.
And what we really want to kind of add in there is how are you getting the patient in your chair to their goals? Because if we're thinking, oh, this person has convergence insufficiency, so we're going to do X, Y, and Z exercises, we're going to resolve their base out recoveries, and everything's going to be fine, and they're going to be happy as a clam. Yeah, if that was the reason that the patient was coming to you because they have convergence insufficiency and would like better base out recovery ranges. Most likely, that's not why they came to you. They might have come to you because they're seeing double when they're reading. They might have come to you because now they're in their first pair of progressives and that's not working out for them when they're golfing. They might be coming to you because they're a truck driver and they're totally fine being out in the distance. They have no desire to be aligned at near because they don't feel like they need to read anyway. But now that they're taking pictures and selfies with their phone, they don't like that their eye turns out. And so we need to really focus on what the patient's goals are because that's going to dictate your treatment. And so when we're thinking about your methodology, how do your patient goals line up with how you're going to treat and how you're going to get them there? And those are the things that we need to think about, because if we're really thinking about things as diagnoses, we're missing the mark on what the patient's coming to us for.
So just as an example, I want you to think about what your very first therapy appointment looks like when a patient comes in for their first not after they've had their assessment, when they're getting ready to start in office vision therapy. So a lot of times it happens in the same sort of structure, right? The first thing that we do is we answer any questions about their diagnosis, what was found, what kind of accommodations will they need for school or for work. What does this whole thing mean now that they've had a chance to actually absorb what happened in that exam and what it could mean for them or their child, right? Then you set some goals and some expectations. What do we really want to get out of this whole process? What should I expect from this process? So that right from the beginning, everybody has a clear idea of what's important to that patient and what's important to you, and that everybody kind of is on the same pathway going forward. And then with that, we're going to be starting to discuss about compliance and how practice really makes the difference. On the days you're not here, I really need you to be doing stuff at home, and when you're here, we're going to work hard and we're going to have fun and it's going to be worth it, but I need you with me. We talk about structures and systems and any sort of tools that you may use in your office. What kind of homework situation do you have? Do you give them written out instructions? Do you have a video portal system for them? How are they supposed to know how to work things within your office? And then once we finally get into those exercises, you're going to have to set the stage. We have to have them expecting what proper posture looks like when they're doing exercises, when they're sitting, when they're standing. What does motor overflow have to do with any of their success? And how do they know when they're doing it? How do they know when they're doing their exercises right? How do they load? How do they unload? What are they supposed to be paying attention to? All of these areas can be very overwhelming for a new patient or a new patient's helper if it's their spouse or their parents. And these are the kinds of things that we go into in depth in a first therapy appointment. And we then also help them recognize some successes. We help them recognize that we're here to support them when things are challenging. Yes, this can be hard. And yeah, it might even be harder than you expected, but we're here. We're going to get through it and see how much easier it was when you just did this. So all of this can seem very overwhelming when you're thinking about it. There's a lot of moving parts, and all of it happens within 30 minutes of an in-person session. But that new patient walks away feeling very empowered, feeling very equipped, feeling very excited for what's to come, very hopeful and very like enthusiastic. Oh, that was fun. Oh, that wasn't as bad as I expected. Oh, I really enjoyed that. And all of that can be bottleable. All of that can be put into a way that you do not have to replicate it over and over and over again for every single patient that you are about to touch. And it's not the chair, it's not the tools, it's not the whole, actual office. It's the thinking about what goes into that session. That is what makes the difference.
And to kind of piggyback on that too, like Jess said, the patient's leaving empowered, they're feeling this, that, and all the things, which is true oftentimes. And what we've also seen is that they feel that way after the exam. They feel that way after the consult, where they're like, you've told them, yes, these things that you've had for forever or that just started but are debilitating, we're going to do vision therapy. We're going to get those away. We're going to help you achieve your goals, this, that, and the other. And then they go home to relay that to somebody, and it's like all of the information just disappeared into the ether and they don't know how to explain it. And then they're trying to justify to the other parent or their spouse or whomever is helping, pay for these things, and they're not able to get it. But imagine if you were there explaining everything, explaining how vision therapy is going to get them to their goals. And ideally, you will not be at their house at 10 o'clock at night needing to explain it to them, because that's not what we want to do. But you can be in that situation if we bottle your intellectual property. That first therapy session, back, when we first started, I only had like 2 therapists that were allowed to do first therapy sessions because I was very nervous as to whether or not what my thought process was going to be delivered appropriately. That was before we had a standardized method of training all of our vision therapists. And now I know that no matter who in the office is seeing the patient for that session, they will say the exact right things. Even the people answering the phone will say the exact right things. But it took a while to get to that point because there's so many things that need to be covered that we want to make sure that they're sounding as much like me as possible. And that's not possible. And so how do we make it possible? By having all of that codified.
And here's the fear that we hear all the time. So if I scale this, do I dilute the care? Every doctor we've talked to is worried about this. They've all asked it. And to be fair, we were kind of thinking that as well when we first started.
Definitely.
But yeah. And the thing is, you're not wrong to ask it. That is a very legitimate fear. And in fact, if you didn't ask that, then we've got something else to worry about because
We'd be more concerned.
yeah. Because the real fear isn't just dilution. The real fear is that we're going to build something and do it wrong. Because building something that doesn't actually work for your patients is a legitimate fear. And that's exactly why most doctors who try to build this alone never finish, or they build something that doesn't hold up clinically. That's a huge risk. So here's a little story before we really jump into what that means for us. In 1958, American Express was told not to launch a credit card. The argument was simple. It would cannibalize their traveler's checks business, the most successful product they had ever made. And of course, they launched the card anyway. And today, that card is the company. I mean, you don't really think about American Express traveler's checks. And in fact, they were just discontinued last year. That product built that company, but it was not the product that scaled it into the future and made it the big company that it is, the multi-billion-dollar company that American Express is not because of traveler's checks. That's where they started, it's where they needed to be. But if you protect what works, it's not the same thing as building what comes next. There's a
And
huge distinction there.
the reason why we're bringing this up is because imagine if American Express had stayed with traveler's checks. Like, where would they be now? Would they exist now? And I kind of think no. And they had to take a big risk because they did have this successful business, but they saw what was coming down the pike. And what we want is for our profession as a whole to see what's coming down the pike. We, as we said before, we don't want this to be blockbuster video. We don't want vision therapy to leave optometry and go to a profession that doesn't know as much about vision. We already know that a lot of our peers are not interested in vision therapy at all, and some of them won't even refer for vision therapy. And so we don't want optometry to further separate itself from vision therapy. And we're the ones who are going to keep that together. And we need to keep it together in a way that's meeting the needs of the patients that we're seeing. I was speaking with a doctor a few days ago, and she was saying that 30 years ago, the landscape was different. People weren't working as much, moms weren't working as much outside of the home. Children didn't have an activity every single day after school. There wasn't ninja and every other like made up thing that these kids have now. And I know because my kids go to all of them. So, and so do Jess's. They're at all the things.
Very busy.
So,
very busy.
They are so overscheduled and there's no real time to fit in. Yes, we're going to come to vision therapy every single week or twice a week at this time, and we're going to get our homework done the way that it was able to be structured before. So we can say, oh, those parents don't care as much about their kids anymore. And I've seen that on, certain Facebook pages where it's like, oh, well, if they prioritize their kids, then they would make this sacrifice. That's one way to think about it. Or we can say, if we prioritize what we're offering and the changes that it can make in people's lives, we can make it more accessible. And that's what we need to do.
So what we know, what we've seen time and time again, and we truly stand in what we really believe, is that what dilutes care is removing the doctor, not extending the methodology. And the doctors who try to build this without a structured process almost always get stuck or get it wrong. And it's not because their methodology isn't strong, but because extraction is a specific skill set, something that we've had to develop. And so what we've done is we've made it a structured process, and we've been there. We have been through the ringer. We have tried all the things. We have made all the mistakes, and we know what works too. And so when we build cohorts of doctors who are doing it alongside each other, and they can, bounce ideas off of each other, they can share different, approaches and different thoughts and be able to see it from different sides, then we know that the programs that are built are really structurally sound, really clinically sound, and they just work. They work well for where these families are in this landscape. This is how we know in 2026 and beyond, this actually works. And again, it's not computerized VT, it's not replacing the doctor, it's not generic therapy, it is clinician-led methodology delivered differently. And so we wanted to share this quote from a mom who did one of our digital programs for Built to Read. She said, "This is everything but computerized. I learned on the computer, but this was real treatment in real space in real time." That's an actual quote from an actual mom, Nicole. She did Built to Read with her daughter. And she saw that this is real activities in a real environment, real time, real progression, real clinical decision making. She didn't call it clinical decision making. She doesn't know that it's clinical decision making, but she could see the value in knowing that this isn't just a computerized program that she can plunk her daughter in front of and expect her to improve. This is something that they did together, and this is how she felt empowered, almost as a vision therapist working with her daughter and understanding her daughter and learning about her daughter and learning from her daughter and teaching her daughter and doing all of the actual treatment in real life.
And again, she wasn't doing this to get rid of her daughter's convergence excess, which is what her daughter had. And she wasn't doing it to get rid of that. She was doing it because her daughter was 4 and was not meeting the academic standards that her school system was looking for. And so she wasn't sure what was going on. She's like, oh, she sits really close to the TV. Maybe that's it. When she's trying to like stack blocks and things, like do Legos, like things don't look like my older daughter, but I don't want to compare kids. And it was this whole thing where she was like, I don't know, maybe I'm going crazy. But when the teacher pointed it out, she was like, okay, there's something that needs to be done. Convergence excess, convergence insufficiency, accommodative excess, accommodative insufficiency, accommodative imbecility, that means nothing to her. What she wanted was for her daughter to have a better academic foundation for her academic success. She was able to understand the visual process, how that goes into her academic success. She was able to watch those videos with her husband. She was able to have her nanny watch some of the videos and really understand how everything kind of fits together so that she could practice with her. She was able to have her older daughter practice with her by understanding why they were working on these things. The teacher had a better understanding of what was going on. And before the 12 weeks was over, because that's how long Built to Read was, she was making these academic gains that she had kind of installed with for the first 6 months of that academic school year.
And so what we hear from a lot of the VTODs that we've worked with is, how do you monitor the patient's progress in real time? If this is real treatment, how do you know how they're doing? And here's our honest answer. On the platform itself, we don't. It's all a clinical decision. So the reason isn't that we couldn't build it, it's that because that's not what we built. What we built is doctor directed. Like when a patient is doing a digital therapy program in our office, from our office, Dr. Collier is the one who diagnosed them. And she can make some clinical decisions about how much she wants to modify a digital program based on the clinical information that she gets from them. So a lot of times we leave it up to the doctors who are working with their own patients to decide what or how much they want to modify based on their findings. And the platform handles the delivery, so you don't have to be in the room, but you get to handle the clinical decision making, and that's what makes your care and extends your care instead of replaces it. And so that's exactly how we do it in our office.
And that kind of goes back to the genesis of the program. Like we told you, we started this program to take care of our wait list and give people a starting ground. We had every intention of seeing that patient, having them do an office vision therapy, having them kind of go through till the end. So we were expecting our quantitative findings and their qualitative findings. We wanted those things to mix and match. We wanted to still have that interaction with the patient. We didn't create these programs to replace the doctor. We didn't create these programs to have it be that, you could get vision therapy for $10 a month or something like that. We created these programs because we needed to expand our reach and we needed to expand access. However, the doctor is very, very important in the program. Now, our programs are fully developed. They're fully, like we were able to anticipate when things would need to pivot, and we've done enough vision therapy to have these programs be fully built so that optometrists who don't specialize in vision therapy are able to help their patients if they're far away from, behavioral optometrists, or the patient can't afford going out to do an office vision therapy. So the program stands alone, but also we use it as a tool in our office as well, because that way we're really still directing that patient through.
Exactly. So basically what it boils down to is, just like Dr. Collier was saying, you already have everything you need. What you don't have yet is the way to extract it correctly. And that's not a reflection of your clinical ability. It's just a different skill set. This is not something that any of us were taught in school. And I didn't go to optometry school, but I was an education major at first, and I didn't learn that. I know you guys didn't learn that in optometry school, but that's what Vision Adventure is built to do. And we do it very quickly within 90 days. Doctors are selling their programs to their patients before their program is even finished. We did that too.
And when we built our first digital program, it did not take only 90 days. It took
No.
significantly longer than that. And,
Yes.
but we've made it so that you can do it in 90 days because we know how important it is for you to expand your reach. We know how important it is for you to manage your wait list. We know how important it is for you to manage distance. And with everything that's changed with insurance over the past, well, since 2022 and onward, there's a lot of things that are making it so that it's a lot easier for patients to say that this isn't something that they can do right now. And we want to still help those patients. And so we have created this program so that you can learn it, do it, create it, build it in 90 days so that you can start having patients get on board. And right now is an amazing time to do it because then we're right in time for back to school exams, which is why we actually did this webinar series now to get everyone, ready for August and all the things that August entails.
All the things. So we just wanted to introduce you to Dr. Chow. He recouped his entire investment in Vision Adventure before his program was even finished, which is pretty amazing. He enrolled patients during the build. He didn't wait for it to be perfect. He didn't wait for it to be complete. He said to his patients who he knew would be a good fit, hey, I've got this program. It's starting on September 1st. I really think you're a great candidate for it. Here's why. And he laid it all out and he was able to explain what was happening and what was going on. And they said, yes, I want in. They signed up, they paid before he was even done building his actual program out. And that's not a flaw of the process. That's actually the design. We are teaching you how to actually present what you're building and really be able to stand on it 10 toes down and say, no, this is an amazing thing. I want you to be a part of it. Let's do this. When it launches on September 1st, you're the first one to get access. Let's go. You can get people excited and also know that you're going to be delivering something of quality that's really going to help them and change their lives before you even know what your final product actually looks like.
And that's because he had his methodology planned out. So the methodology is like the first part of the program because he couldn't tell people to join this program where it's like, yeah, and I'm still kind of like thinking about which exercises to put in and like what it
No.
might help. Like, no. It was done. It just the videos weren't recorded. We hadn't uploaded them to the drives and everything yet. But the reason why we designed it that way was because we want the feedback from your chair because your patient population might react to a digital program different than my patient population. And we want to make sure that how you're speaking to them is molded around what your patient population is looking for. Because like I said, I have my particular patients who want to see me. You have your particular patients who want to see you. And that's in large part, that's because we explain things very differently. And so, however you're explaining it, we want it to go through, our marketing experts and everything to really hone that in to who your patient population is so that you're explaining it in a way that's really conveying the value to them. And the way that we know that best is by having their feedback. Every single person you say something to, the ones who said yes, the ones who said no, the ones who said maybe, we want that information back so that then Nicole can really work her magic and hone the delivery for next time so that we can really get this to be as successful with your patient population as possible. Because at the end of the day, we want access. We want patients to be able to get your care.
And so with Vision Adventure, it's a 90-day journey. You become the doctor whose methodology is no longer depending on what room you're sitting in. It is how you are going to get your patients access to your care. It's not a watered down version of it. Your practice generates the revenue from the work that you're not personally delivering. You don't have to clone yourself. We've been working on that cloning machine. It is not going anywhere. So this is the way that we're going to do it. But your methodology becomes something that your practice owns, and it's not something that your schedule controls. You're not just learning how to build that program, you're walking out with one. This is all a big process, but it's so worth it. And it's a lot easier when you've got a team who's going to guide you step by step by step with other people who are working through it. And she mentioned Nicole. Nicole is our marketing expert in Vision Adventure. We have a sales expert in Vision Adventure. We have the therapy experts, the people who have actually made the programs. We are all in it and on your team so that your care, that we don't want to gatekeep vision therapy and make, Dr. Collier's methodology the only one that spreads across the country. We want vision therapy and actual vision therapy doctors and actually, people who really have all this expertise and all this knowledge to share to be able to move on and share it and build it. So after those 90 days, you walk away with a program. It is a 90-day structured extraction process. It is cohort based. You are actually taking a whole, your program is going to be built, it's going to be recorded, it's going to be priced, and it's going to go live. It's not a concept. It's not like, oh, I think I want to do this, and then you walk away without something. You just have a concept of an idea. You will also have your method, the framework that makes your program the first step in your therapeutic ecosystem, all of the different things that you can offer. And once you've built the first one, the next one comes a lot easier. And you can trust us on this because we built to read first, but then we were able to built for life for our adults. Then we were able to built to drive road trip for our neurodiverse patients. And then we were able to built to drive test drive for our typical teens. And then we were able to build built to see for our toddlers. And then we were able to build, you get the idea. Once you understand the method and that process, you create a whole ecosystem based on that idea for all the different patient populations that you want to reach. And all that scale picks up and you get to add, you get to become and build and develop your asset. This is something that your practice owns. It's something that doesn't retire with you. When you are done, your programs live on. It's something you can sell. And that's the difference between the job and the asset that we were talking about before.
And one of the doctors that I spoke with this week, she was asking, like, okay, so this is a course where I learn how to do all of this, and then I kind of just go. No, this is not that, because we're doctors and we're busy and we're really good at taking courses, really, really good at it. Really good.
Wouldn't be a doctor if you weren't.
Exactly. We need the program. We need the program built. We need the program done. It's not just about gaining information for you. Like we said, it's really extracting information from you and creating this program that then you can disseminate to your patient population. And so this isn't just like a learning exercise and it's something that you can put on the back burner and, oh, I did build a program, 6 years ago or 6 months ago or whatever. Maybe I should use that sometime. No, this is actually your brainchild. And it's there and it's available for your patients.
And every doctor that we've worked with has had these things in common, and this is what made them very successful. They've had that structured process where they have learned how to extract. Again, I've talked about this earlier. It's a different skill set than your clinical knowledge. Doctors who try to write down their methodology without any structure when they're just kind of oh, well, then I do this and then I do that, right? Don't I do that? But they could spend a whole year or more on something that we can walk you through in 12 weeks. It
And we
is
know because
something
we've
that
actually done that. We did,
exactly.
you know, many years ago, I decided that we need to do some retrospective study on how I treat different diagnoses. And we had an intern and he like categorized everything. And it was amazing. It was great. And it saved somewhere. Don't know where that saved, but we did it. That's unhelpful. And that's what we don't want. We don't want this to be an exercise in futility for you.
Exactly. And part of what it makes it successful is that you have a cohort alongside you. You build alongside those other doctors who get it. They understand the struggle. They have to run from, seeing 12 patients back to back to back to then getting on a call with us and understanding, okay, so what do we need to do next and where are we? Having that team beside you changes everything about whether or not you finish because when you have someone other people who understand, who you can vent to, who you can just to understand like your frustrations or your challenges, or to celebrate your wins and be alongside you and say, yeah, I knew you could do it, that looks awesome, good job, that really helps motivate how these things get done. And not only that, it's not just a cohort of other business people and other entrepreneurs who are trying to build something. These are vision therapy doctors. These are vision therapists. They know our zhuzh, right? It's like that feeling you get when you go to an OEP course or you go to AVDRA and you are talking to other professionals who actually understand what you're talking about and actually know what it's like. And when you go to that CE course and you're talking to other people from around the world that understand it, oh my gosh, it's like living in a fairy tale. Like, so when you get to actually meet with these people and grow with these people over the course of 3 months, you develop very close bonds and understanding. And our program, this product, this everything, all of it is built from that VT standpoint. And that is what makes our field different. You're not joining in, hoping to adapt an OT program. You're not trying to adapt an educational product. We are building vision therapy, and this is our field, and this is what we own, this is what we love. Let's stay here. Let's strengthen it. Let's fortify it. And so we see our, whole process as a 4-tier path. Our 4D Elevate works on how vision therapists and vision therapy practices start, how they implement what they're doing at home with our at-home programs that are already built, or if they want to build something of their own and actually package up their IP, package up their clinical decision making, all the things that we were just talking about. Or if once they've built something, how do they want to scale it? How do they want that to expand beyond their clinic walls? Right now, we're talking about building. That's what Vision Adventure is about. But we have tools and we have, products and ideas for all of these different paths.
And when we're looking at that build pathway, which is what, we're talking about today, like Jess was saying, we really want it to be for doctors who have seen the things. And I know we spoke about this in the last webinar as well, but we need there to be enough kind of footing under you for you to be able to anticipate when people will hit a wall, or anticipate when there will be a hiccup, or anticipate, when something will be needed to be loaded or unloaded, and all of those things. And so the build piece is for the established practices, the people who do have that IP, the people maybe you're not going to lecture, but you probably could, like that sort of thing. And maybe you are lecturing. Those are the doctors that are really best suited for the build portion. If that's not you, that's totally fine. We have other ways for you to expand your reach, and that's through, using other programs that other doctors have built, by, starting to really understand how to incorporate your vision therapy love or passion into your practice, all of those things. We do have avenues for you for that, but the build is really for those doctors who have kind of had some years on them, and they can anticipate the things, because we want to make sure that when these products are made, that when these doctors are building these programs, if they do want to share them with other optometrists, that they're programs that the other optometrists can trust. And so that's really the big thing there, and that I just want to make sure that that's clear too.
And so why now? Actually, our next cohort will start on June 1st, and enrollment for that cohort closes on May 31st, because this is very systematic, okay? June starters will have something to offer your back to school exams in August. We all know what happens when school starts, and maybe around that like beginning time, kids start to notice, oh, things look a little different, or parents are starting to notice, oh, that maybe is this the summer slide, or is there something more going on? When you have those kind of panicked, scared families coming to you for back to school and looking for answers, you will have another option to be able to reach all the patients that need you. And every doctor who waits until later this summer will be building when your colleagues are already enrolling their patients. So the sooner you get in on this, the more advantage you have. Those who start in June are going to be the ones who have their programs live for the busiest exam season of the year.
And what we also want to think with that, and what we were saying about kids being overprogrammed and everything, is that yes, parents are coming in August because they know their kid might need new glasses, or they want to make sure their vision's good for school to start and everything. And then they're like, oh yeah, this sounds great. We need to start. But we don't know what the school year is going to be like. We don't know what after school things are going to be, and blah, 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 blah. And then now your team needs to follow up with them in the middle of September, because that first, at least for patients in Connecticut, that first week in September, I feel like parents have no idea. They don't know what day it is, what month it is. They're just like running around like crazy people. And so usually we have to follow back up in the middle of September, where now you just lost a month of helping that kiddo. And so that's why we really want to get things started, so that in August, you're able to offer them a solution that they can actually fit into their life.
And so the next step that you need to do is simple. We can sit down and actually look at your practice. We can have that 30-minute chat, just you and Dr. Collier, diagnosing where you actually are, tell you honestly whether Vision Adventure is the right fit for you and your practice right now. So definitely want to, give you a chance to snap that code, set up a, conversation, because that cohort is closing really soon. That's the end of this month. And I know like this year, I don't know where 2026 went, but we're nearly halfway through. And so it's the time to really start getting things into gear so that you are ready for that back to school time.
And I think that if you guys have, obviously you've been here for almost an hour now. So I think that you, at this point, are pretty much on board with knowing that digital needs to play some sort of role in your delivery method going forward, in order to maintain your practice, in order to grow your practice, and in order to grow your reach. And so really we can talk about the different ways, like I was saying, that there's 4 different methods that we can do. We can talk about the different ways of incorporating this other way of delivering care in your practice to see what makes the most sense for where you are and where your practice is and where you see yourself in the next 5-10 years, because things are changing, everything's changing, and we want to make sure that we aren't reacting, but that we're being proactive. And then next week, or next Tuesday again at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to dive in even deeper to see how much is your VT practice worth. and maybe you're not thinking about selling right now, maybe you're not thinking about retiring, maybe you just got into this, but at the end of the day, we invest a lot into building our VT practices, and we want to have an understanding of what it is going to be worth if we were to need to sell it, to want to sell it, and to decide we want to sell coconuts on the beach. Whatever it is that you want to do, we want to know what your practice value is. So with that, let's see if there's any questions.
I don't see
And it doesn't look
much
like it. So
chat now.
wonderful. It was so nice being with you guys again tonight, and we hope to see you next week. Let us know if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out to me, and let's get your practice scaling even more so we can help more people. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.
You're welcome.